Okay. Okay. All right. Give me like 10 seconds. Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay, good stuff. All right, so let's start with 1619. 1619 was kind of an important year. That was seen as kind of the year that slavery kind of began in the United States. That's also one of the first years where that first slave law was passed. Remember that before a certain time period, you didn't even have a classification of people as black or Negro or anything like that. You just had, I guess, different nationalities and things like that. There's no reference of things like the word black until I want to say 1670, 1680, when they started realizing, okay, if we separate black people from the pack, then we can go ahead and enslave them and get rich from them. And the Catholic Church was a big player in that. So in 1619, this is the first law that's listed in Dr. Anderson's book, Black Labor, White Wealth, page 223. The law is called the Maryland Segregation Policy. It recommended that blacks be socially excluded. So it recommended. So I don't know if that, I guess that doesn't mean required, but recommended that black people kind of be pushed to the side, that you start separating them. And again, remember, this reminds me of the fact that you have no friends in this country. You think that you can just integrate and blend in. Well, since 1619, they've designed this society so that you don't blend in. They don't want you blending in, right? Old habits are hard to break. 1642, Virginia Fugitive Slave Law authorized the branding of an R on the face of runaway slaves. Give me a yes or no. How many of y'all knew that runaway slaves, they would put an R for runaway on they would brand their face like a cow? Anybody ever seen what a brand, how much that hurts? So imagine this is happening to your ancestors. They're literally getting a big piece of metal, putting it on the fire, heating it up to really extremely hot temperatures, and then they're putting it on the face of that slave. Can you imagine how traumatic that was? I mean, I want you to process what that must have felt like. Can you imagine somebody putting something on the stove, taking the burner off the stove? Imagine how hot the burner on the stove gets when you're cooking. Imagine somebody grabbing that burner and putting your face on that burner. These people did this to your ancestors. They did this to your family. And y'all act like we're supposed to forget. And you didn't even teach us this in school. How many of you, give me a yes or no, how many of you learned any of this in school? Did anybody in this room, there's hundreds and hundreds of people, hundreds of you listening right now. Intelligent black people are in the room. You're intelligent, you're educated. Some of y'all got MBAs, PhDs, JDs, all that. How many of you learned that in school, or learned in school, that the Virginia Fugitive Slave Law of 1642 authorized the branding of an R on the face of any runaway slave? I'm looking. I have not seen a yes yet. So this doesn't just mean that they committed the ultimate crime or set of crimes, thousands of crimes, maybe hundreds of thousands, millions of crimes, but they committed an equally egregious cover up of those crimes. The cover up through the educational system. That's why when you ask me about the public school system and what white folks can teach you to make you better and help you succeed, I just don't believe you. I don't buy into this idea that people who would cover up this criminal behavior toward our people should be educating our children at all. I just don't trust them. Let me keep reading. 1686, the Carolina Trade Law barred blacks from all trades. So your ancestors in 1686, if they wanted to, they had ambition like you. They wanted to get ahead like you. A lot of y'all in here, how many of y'all want to be financially free? How many of y'all want to go and build wealth for your family? How many men in here want to take care of their woman? How many women in here want to contribute to their household? All of you do. Every one of you. Your ancestors wanted the same thing you did, but they passed a law, a damn law in 1686 that says black people cannot get into any trades. So you just throwing them out there with nothing. Nothing. 1691, the Virginia marriage law prescribed banishment of any white woman marrying a black. That don't bother me much because I ain't never wanted to marry a white woman. My wife is high yellow. That's as close to white as I'm gonna get, but she 100% black, all down in her bones. But y'all can have the white women. No disrespect to any white women who are listening, but y'all you can't, don't stand next to a black woman because you can't compete. No disrespect, but it's true. 1705, the Virginia Public Office Law prohibited blacks from holding or assuming any public office. We got to keep those Negroes out of government. 1710, Virginia enacted meritorious manumission. How many of those of you who've been listening to me for a while probably know what meritorious manumission is. If you've read any Dr. Claude Anderson's books, you know about meritorious manumission. That is a punishment reward system designed to incentivize the buffoonish behavior that you see right now. It incentivized the slaves to snitch on each other. It incentivized it. It rewarded them. You can become a hero by becoming an enemy to your people. This still goes on today. This still goes on today. Let's keep going. 1712, South Carolina Fugitive Slave Act criminalized runaway slaves to protect owners' investments. So you were not a person, you were an investment, you were an asset, you were a piece of capital. 1715, North Carolina anti-interracial marriage law forbade and criminalized black and white marriages. Again, don't bother me. Never wanted to marry a white woman, so it's okay. 1717, South Carolina anti-interracial marriage law forbade and criminalized black-white marriages. Criminalized. So you go to jail for that. 1723, Virginia anti-assembly law impeded blacks from meeting or having a sense of community. Now you know why so many Negroes can't stick together. Because you weren't allowed to stick together. So that because it was in the law in 1723, there was a law that said if black people come together and simply love each other and help each other and connect with each other, that is criminal behavior. We will lock all of them up. So now you wonder where the black family went. You wonder where black unity went. You wonder where black love went out the window. Well, because it was in the law. So loving a black man loving a black woman is one of the most revolutionary things you can do. A black man partnering with another black man is incredibly revolutionary. When black women come together as sisters, that's incredibly powerful because it was against the law for you to do that in 1723 and beyond. These laws were legislated, and then they continued on after that point. Let's keep going. 1723, Virginia weapons law forbade blacks from keeping weapons, of course, right? We don't want Negroes to have the ability to fight back. To this day, did anybody ever see, this makes me think about, I remember one time a guy from, I believe it was the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, made a statement where he said black people should arm themselves to defend themselves or something like that. Like we have to defend ourselves against these cops that want to kill us. And do you know that he immediately was removed from his position? And then they sent him, I think they said we have to send him for re-education or something like that. They're basically saying we need to reprogram this Negro because he's talking crazy, right? So the idea of black people having weapons is something that has always been scary for people. And it is something that to this day, they still practice that same thing. Remember they were telling people in the hood, if you drop off your guns, we'll give you a bag of groceries. Well, no, I mean, if I got my gun, I'm going to keep it. You're not going to get my gun for some potato chips and a soda. All right, let me keep going. All right, 1740, South Carolina Consolidated Slave Act forbade slaves from raising or owning farm animals. So pay attention now. They have literally stripped you piece by piece of your humanity. You can't get a trade. You can't come together and work together with other black people. You can't have a weapon to defend yourself. You can't raise an animal. This is systematic. This is strategic. This is the baby version of systematic race. This is the infancy of systematic racism. I told you I was going to read all 85 of these laws. I'm not even on number 10 yet. I'm not even on number 10. Let's keep going. 1775, the Virginia Runaway Slave Law allowed sale or execution of slaves attempting to flee. So you try to get free, they were going to kill you or sell you. 1775, the North Carolina manumission law forbade freeing slaves except for meritorious service. So you could only go free if you were going to do something nice for a white person. 1790, pay attention now, first naturalization law That's when Congress declares the United States to be a white nation. That's when they pretty much said, we want more white people here than black people. We got too many black people. We're going to open up our immigration policy. This is why you got to pay attention to these politicians when they try to get you to vote one way or the other when it comes to immigration. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you what to. I'm not in that business. I'm not trying to get elected for office. I ain't running for nothing. Right. But what I'm telling you is make sure you think through whatever you support politically. Don't just do it because you like the way the politician looks or you like the fact that he ate barbecue chicken with your pastor. Let's pay attention to the policy. Immigration law, according to Dr. Anderson, was designed to dilute the power of black people. So the first naturalization law came in 1790, where America was declared a white nation. 1792, federal militia law restricted enrollment in peacetime militia to whites only. So they only wanted black people or white people in the militia. 1793, fugitive slave law discouraged slaves from running away, protected planters' invested capital. Discouraged. Okay, that's a pretty vague way to describe it. 1793, Virginia migration law forbade free blacks from entering the state. So Virginia got to the point where they said, hey, wait a minute. If we're going to do this slavery thing, we have to do some social distancing here with our Negroes. We can't have the free Negroes talking to the slaves because the free black people are gonna put ideas in their head that are gonna make them want more out of life. Like Toussaint Louverture, whose master or somebody made the mistake of letting him read about the French Revolution and about inalienable rights and the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And he said, well, wait a minute, why can't I have this too? Right? So that's one of the reasons why they love it when you don't read. That's why I created this book club, because I said, look, if you don't want to read, that's all right. That's totally cool. I'm going to read it for you. I'm going to read it to you. I have read every word of this book to you all, because at the end of the day, they don't want you reading. They don't want you to know what's in a book. They only want you to know what's on the next rapper's album. They only want you to know what's on the TV set. They only want you to know what you heard on the radio. That's propaganda, propaganda, propaganda. I need you to understand the value of reading books. There's a reason why and I'm sure at some point we're going to get to a law that basically punishes black people for reading. And the other thing too is there's a reason why. See, people think I get offended, when I'm not really welcome in the mainstream media. Usually when I get in the mainstream media, it's because I just kind of slip in somehow. Because most of the time, mainstream media doesn't really want to hear from somebody like me. And I understand there's a history to this. You don't want free black people talking to the slaves. So the most dangerous black man and black woman in this country is a free-thinking black man or free-thinking black woman. Let me keep going. Next, 1806, Louisiana migration law forbade immigration for free black males over 15 years old. So it forbade immigration for free black males over 15 years old. So if you were a black male over 15 and you wanted to, I guess, come to the United States, you could not come to the U.S. Okay. 1809, congressional mail law excluded blacks from carrying U.S. mail. So they went out of their way. They literally sat down and made a plan on how to come up with a law to make sure you couldn't even be a mailman. Damn. 1811, the Kentucky conspiracy law. Kentucky's my state. Let's see what y'all do, Kentucky. Made conspiracy among slaves a capital offense. Capital offense. Would that be like punishable by death? Like the death penalty? Is that what they mean by capital offense? Somebody answer. Let me Google. I got to Google that because we're learning together. I'm seeing a lot of yeses. I'm just going to confirm so I can know that I'm completely validated in my in the degree to which I'm going to be pissed off. A capital offense, the definition, is an offense that is punishable by the death penalty. It is not necessary that the punishment be imposed was the death penalty, but if the permissible punishment prescribed by the legislature for the offense is the death penalty, then the offense is considered a capital offense. So they were going to give you the death penalty for making a damn plan. Let's meditate on that for a moment, shall we? This is my home state. This is Kentucky. Made conspiracy among slaves a capital offense. So if you were to get together and plan on how you were going to be free, they would snatch you from your mama and hang you from a tree. They would kill you and all your friends. Ain't that something else? So we got to really, I think, for a moment, I think I gotta stop because when I start processing stuff too hard, I start getting emotional. But I think we need to do like an ashe to the ancestors who sacrificed and lived through this hell, so that we can have the right as free people to get together and make the plans that we're making. Because we're making plans on level 10. You know, I'm not a stupid man, and y'all are not stupid people. When we get together, we're making plans that are absolutely epic, that are going to change the world. We've been doing that. We've been doing that for over a decade. So the fact that we can do this, and here's the thing, right? There's nothing hard about what any of us is going through right now. There's nothing hard about my life. I deal with Negro naysayers. I deal with racist white people. Sometimes stuff is hard, but there's nothing hard about our life, because there's not somebody that is going to come kill me tomorrow or carry me away to get the death penalty because I'm making plans with you. But this was the reality of people just like you and I. Just like you and I. They weren't any different from us. They weren't less intelligent than us. They didn't want less than what we wanted. They wanted freedom just like you do. And literally just the idea of getting together and making a plan meant all of you were gonna die if you got caught. This is deep. This is very traumatic. That trauma is what they call genetic. That trauma does pass through generations. Let me keep going. Let me keep reading here. 1813, Virginia poll tax exacted a $1.50 tax on blacks who were forbidden to vote. So it exacted a tax on blacks who were forbidden to vote. So I guess what, if you were forbidden to vote, you paid a tax of $1.50. I got to think about that one. Let me keep going. Of course, so that so they don't want you to vote, right? That's what we're getting here. 1814, Louisiana migration law prohibited free blacks from entering the state. So a lot of states didn't want those uppity Negroes coming into the state because you would put ideas into the minds of the slaves. Virginia poll tax required free blacks to pay a $2.50 tax so whites could vote. So you, as a free black person, are expected to pay a tax so that white people can vote. Kind of reminds me of being in the Democratic Party a little bit, right? We do all the work, they get all the rewards. I don't know. Let's see, 1816, Louisiana, pay attention. The Louisiana jury law provided that no black person could testify against a white person. 1816, this was a real law. So white people were elevated. Again, this is what systematic racism is. It's where you systematically design a set of laws that puts one group of people above another group of people. And the thing that you got to understand is that the world you live in today wasn't created yesterday. This was a world that was created over the last 400 years. So the same way, like if I want to understand, if I'm a doctor and I want to understand the body of a child, I got to go study its mother. I got to study its genetics, right? So if you want to understand the body, the political, economic, social body of America, you got to understand the genetics. How did we get to where we are now? What's the history here, right? So these are the kinds of laws they pass. So if you go to Louisiana and you see that the prisons are filled with black people, well, this is probably part of the reason why you started off with laws like this, that no black person could ever testify against a white person. I was watching that documentary last night, or it's a show about that lady Elizabeth Holmes, a white girl with blonde hair that wanted to be Steve Jobs, that built the company called Theranos. And she basically just was a con artist. She created this fake company and got billions of dollars because I guess they just thought she was like smart and white or whatever, and they gave her all this money. And I remember saying to Alicia, I said, this is interesting because this story is humanizing her. It's making people empathize with this criminal person. And they wouldn't be doing that if she were a black man. They're doing that with her as a white woman because they were so shocked that a white female would be caught up in a situation like this because the prisons were not designed for white women. If you study the numbers on prisons, you will find that black males dominate in terms of the percentages and probabilities of going to prison. After that, there's black women, then there's white men, and then white women are way, way, way down at the bottom. Prisons were not built for white women, right? So when I see laws like this, they say that no black person could ever testify against a white person. That means, number one, that they were allowed to just run roughshod in your community and do horrible things to you. I mean, a white boy could literally go to a black neighborhood and kill 4 people, and nobody could testify against him. But then also it speaks to that unbelievable depth, the depth of the bias that existed in the system. I bet most of y'all probably had never heard of this law in your life. Let me keep reading. Thank you, Dr. Anderson, for giving us the receipts. 1819. This is where people like me get in trouble. 1819, the Missouri literacy law forbade assembling or teaching black slaves to read and write. So the fact that you and I are assembling and we are reading together, that right there would make us into criminals in 1819, according to the Missouri Literacy Law. 1820, the South Carolina Migration Law prohibited free blacks from entering the state. So all the states wanted the slaves. None of the states wanted the free black people. It's kind of like mainstream media now, right? Like they love a black man if he's a thugged out rapper rapping about babies, mamas, and killing black people. They love a black man if he's a comedian making a fool out of his damn self, telling jokes and being a clown, right? But free thinking black people or black people who have intelligence, they don't want no parts of that, because people like you and I are the ones who lead revolutions. We're the ones who wake up the clowns, and the clowns wake up and say, hey, wait a minute, this ain't right. And that causes problems, right? So this goes back all the way, 400 years, right? 1820, South Carolina passed a specific law to say, we don't want free black people in our state. So one thing you should definitely understand, if you don't know it yet, is that legality is not morality. That which is legal is not the same as that which is right. Stop thinking that laws define what is moral and ethical, because there's nothing unethical about a black person being free or being intelligent, but they just act like it's a damn crime. Let's keep going. In fact, I should tell you all this. I tried to go to visit a federal prison. There was a guy named Mario Lloyd out of Chicago, and I knew his family, and I was real supportive of his case because I wanted him to get reconsideration, because the poor guy's been in prison for over 30 years, and I don't think he should. I think he's paid his debt to society. It took over a year for them to even allow me to come to that prison. Now, you would think that the fact that they kept rejecting me would mean I got a criminal record, or I'm gang affiliated, or I'm rolling up in there, I might do something. No, the weapon I was bringing to that penitentiary was my brain. That was the weapon that they feared. And that's why it took about a year and a half before they gave me clearance to even come and visit him, because they did not want free black people talking to the slaves. And if you don't think prison inmates today are slaves, you need to go read the Constitution. Shout out to Ava DuVernay for doing a great documentary. I think it was called The 13th, where she basically explains how slavery is still legal in the United States. All they got to do is label you a criminal. And from reading the way laws are arbitrarily designed by racist people to control black people, you understand that anybody can be labeled a criminal, because according to these laws, you were a criminal just for reading a damn book. You were a criminal just for assembling and making a plan. We read earlier that black slaves who were conspiring to do anything, I guess planning to go out to dinner tomorrow, could be sent to jail for conspiracy. That's how crazy it is, right? So let me keep going here. 1827, Florida voting law restricted voting to whites. 1829, Georgia literacy law provided a fine and imprisonment for teaching a black person to read. So you could go to prison for educating black people. That's why these non-reading Negroes make me mad. People that don't want to learn nothing now, it's a damn insult to your ancestors. You don't want to learn because they were dying to learn, and here you are, you walking away from books. 1830, Louisiana expulsion law required all free blacks to leave the state within 60 days. So Louisiana didn't just say free black people can't come into the state. They said all the free black people have to leave. Now, again, give me a guess on the chat. How many of y'all even heard of these laws? Did y'all know that they were like passing laws like this, like that we want all the free black people out of the state? Like, this is very interesting, right? Let me keep going. 1830, the Mississippi employment law forbade black employment in printing and entertainment, so banned them from an entire industry. 1830, Kentucky property tax law taxed blacks and forbade their voting or attending school. So you pay taxes, but you can't vote and you can't go to school. 1831, North Carolina license law required all black traders and peddlers to be licensed. Traders and peddlers to be licensed. Okay, so white people didn't need a license. That's really interesting. 1831, South Carolina enacted licensing prohibition. Free blacks were denied any kind of business license. So in South Carolina in 1831, if you were black and you were free, you could not own a business at all. That law, just that one law right there, is worth a couple trillion in reparations, because you had some business geniuses who couldn't even get the damn license, couldn't even get started. You had your black Mark Zuckerbergs, you had your black Bill Gateses, you had your black Steve Jobs, who literally would stop dead in their tracks because they weren't even allowed to get a license to start a business. So this is what your ancestors faced up. What the hell are you going through that even compares to what they had to go through? Get off your ass and go get whatever the hell you got coming to you, and stop being a punk. Look at what they went through just to give you a chance to breathe on this earth. Stop being a punk. Let me keep going. 1831, the Mississippi Preaching Law forbade free blacks to preach except with permission. So you couldn't even, I mean, this is, I don't know about y'all, this is crazy to me. They couldn't even preach without permission. Good Lord. Jesus. 1832, Alabama and Virginia literacy laws fined and flogged whites for teaching blacks to read or write. So they were beating white people for being nigger, for even teaching a black person how to read or write. You were going to get beat. 1833, Georgia literacy law provided fines and whippings for teaching blacks. 1833, Kentucky licensing prohibition. No free person of color could obtain a business license. 1835, the Missouri registration law required the registration and bonding of all free blacks. So if you free, you got to register so we can keep track of your free black ass. 1835, Georgia employment law prohibited employing blacks in drugstores. Again, another industry cut off to black people. 1837, South Carolina curfew law required blacks to be off the street by a certain hour. So you had a curfew like you were a child. 1838, Virginia school law forbade blacks who had gone north to school to return. So what? I'm sorry. This is this is remember that song White People Crazy? Anybody remember that song? There's another song, The White People Crazy. They you talk about throwing the book at somebody. They wrote a whole damn book just so they could throw it at y'all. I'm not even halfway done. These are real laws. So in Virginia, if you went north to go to school, you were not allowed to come home. That's how dangerous intelligent black people were to the establishment. So now do y'all understand why I say that my platform is the home for intelligent black people? And do y'all get that? Do y'all understand why I literally ignore the hell out of any Negro who doesn't understand it, who doesn't like that? I had somebody say, oh, that's being uppity. You're being uppity by only appealing to intelligent black people. I said, because we spend too much time trying to be ignorant. We had to be ignorant back then. We ain't got to be ignorant no more. You're choosing ignorance. I want intelligence because the most dangerous black person in the world is a person who is free, intelligent, and fearless. That makes you the original gangster as far as I'm concerned. So yes, I want to be around as many intelligent black people as possible. If you're not intelligent, then guess what? I will teach you. And these laws are proving to you that the fact that I'm teaching you is the most dangerous thing you can do. That's the most revolutionary thing that a black person can do is teach each other. Each one teach one. That's heavy. And I'm not just saying it. It's not just my opinion. It's not just me saying, oh, well, I think education is important. No, they put it in the damn book. They had it in the law. Think about how fast somebody like me would have got killed in 1735. I wouldn't have made it past my 18th birthday. So I need y'all to understand why they trying to abort your black boys and they're trying to make sure your black girls grow up and want to be hoes and your boys want to be thugs and they don't want to read. There's a history here. This is history, man. Let's keep going. Okay, boys, breathe and focus. 1838, North Carolina marriage law declared void all interracial marriages to the third generation. I don't even know what that means exactly, but let's keep going. More white people foolishness. 1841, South Carolina observing law forbade blacks and whites from looking out the same windows. Did y'all hear what I just said? They literally went out of their way to make a law They said white and black people cannot look out the same damn window. You couldn't even look out the window with a white person. They would beat your ass and lock you up for looking out the window with a white guy. Now you understand why this country is so messed up? Seriously, it's beyond repair. Let's keep going. Let me keep going because I kind of want to rant. Okay, South Carolina Observing Law, 1841, forbade blacks and whites from looking out the same windows. 1842, the Maryland Information Law. This wasn't that long ago. It's less than 200 years ago, by the way. Felony blacks demanding or receiving abolition newspapers. So when newspapers would come out that were talking about why black people should be free, they would lock you up if they caught you reading those papers. Now, I want you to understand. Let me tell you a story about why that's very interesting, very significant. When I was in graduate school at the University of Kentucky, again, a state that has appeared many times, like with the Kentucky licensing prohibition, where black people couldn't get business licenses and stuff like that. I remember that when I started writing for the campus paper, when I was a young graduate student, I was teaching in the math department, and I just started writing. I didn't even know that I could write. God just told me what to say, and I put it on paper. Next thing you know, the whole campus is going crazy because apparently I was just saying logical things like black people shouldn't be oppressed, and for some reason that was radical. Anyway, so the articles got out there. A lot of people knew my name at some point. So that one day there was a basketball player named Derek Anderson who eventually played for the San Antonio Spurs. He was a very good athlete. And one of his coaches brought him to my office. And I said, yeah, I'd like to meet him. Sure. So I meet this guy, right? And the coach says, well, we had to sneak him over here because they don't really want the players reading your articles. And I was like, is Massa gonna beat us for reading, sir? Like, what's going on? And literally, and I kid you not, and another guy, there's another really great guy I knew back then named Nazi Muhammad. I haven't seen Nazi. If anybody knows Nazi, like, tell him I said that I'm proud of him. He went and played the NBA for a bunch of years. He was just the best human being that I knew. And Nazi also said the same thing. He said we have to sneak and read your articles because the coaches tell us not to read them. That we get caught reading them, we're gonna get in trouble. And I was like, what slave movie are we starring in right now? This is crazy. This is absolutely, and this is a totally true story. And so when I read this, that in Maryland and probably in Kentucky too, that they were giving black people felonies for reading newspapers that promoted abolition, it reminds me of being a graduate student when basketball players told me that the coaches didn't want them reading my articles about why college athletes should be paid for their labor. I was writing about that in the 90s. Because it wasn't, it didn't, I didn't need a PhD to say that somebody should be paid for doing their labor. It just didn't make sense to people who were used to the other system. But I was like, it's common sense. If you go to work and somebody's making $1 million from your work, you should probably get some of that money. Don't that make sense to you? So sometimes when you are logical or you truly believe that black people are human and that we have rights like everybody else, you end up sounding like you're from the wrong planet. That's what happens. You end up sounding crazy because you're sounding normal, right? So let me keep reading here. Let me go on here. 1844, they have something called the Maryland Color Tax. Can't wait to hear what that one is. It placed a tax on all employed black artisans. Okay, so if you're black and you're an artisan, you got taxed. Okay. 1844, South Carolina Amusement Law prohibited blacks from playing games with whites. Okay, so you couldn't look out the same window with black people in South Carolina, according to the South Carolina Observing Law, and also the South Carolina Amusement Law prohibited blacks from playing games with whites. So it's real funny, right, that you have these politicians that cannot pass a law to save their life that's going to improve the lives of black people. They ain't got time for that, but they have time to pass a law to make sure white and black people can't look out the same window. All right, let's keep going. The Georgia contracting law, it prohibited contracts with black mechanics. Again, black people being entirely excluded from an entire industry. These are the foundations for your arguments in favor of reparations. This is when they talk about reparations, Don't get into talking about, well, slavery was wrong and look at what they did us. They hurt our feelings. Yes, that's true. But also they took real economic opportunity from black people. They took real assets from black people. They blocked you from your ancestors and your family from getting access to property and commodities and other things that they would have passed down to you. This is your inheritance that they stole from you. That's why a lot of you were born with no. How many of you were born with no inheritance? How many of you have never had anybody ever leave you anything in your whole entire life other than maybe like a credit card bill or raggedy used car? That don't count. Seriously, give me a yes in the chat if you've never had anybody ever leave you anything. I'm raising my hands because I've never gotten an inheritance in my life ever. So the reason you don't have an inheritance is because of stuff like this. Your ancestors wanted to leave you something the same way you want to leave things for your kids. They have the same ambition as you. They just didn't get the same opportunity. So let's keep going. 1846, the Kentucky Incitement Law provided imprisonment for inciting slaves to rebel. So if you got slaves to fight back, you were going to go to prison. 1847, Missouri Literacy Law prohibited teaching blacks to read or write. 1848, Virginia Incitement Law provided the death penalty for advising slaves to rebel. So if you told slaves that they shouldn't be slaves, they were going to come kill you. 1850, fugitive slave law enacted, which means that they added stronger enforcement provisions to make sure that if slaves ran away, they could go get them wherever they are and punish them in a significant way. 1852, Georgia tax law imposed a $5 per capita tax on free blacks. So you were going to get taxed just for being free. That was the original black tax, I guess. 1853, Virginia poll tax law levied on all free black males 21 to 55 years old. So you had to pay a tax if you were a free black male 21 to 55. 1856, the Virginia drug law forbade selling poisonous drugs to blacks because I guess they figured that black people might want to use them against the people who have been harming them all this time. 1857, the Dred Scott decision. Supreme Court dehumanized and disenfranchised blacks. A black man has no rights that a white man is bound to respect. I believe that was the quote from the Dred Scott decision. 1858, Maryland recreation law forbade free blacks and slaves from boating on the Potomac. So the Potomac is there. They catch your black ass in a boat. You're going to go to jail, even if you're free. 1868, Southern Black Codes deprive blacks of right to vote and hold public office. 1883, Civil Rights Law of 1875 weakened. Supreme Court challenged the constitutionality of the Civil Rights Law of 1875. 1898, the Grandfather Clause deprived blacks of the right to vote in Louisiana, probably from saying that you can't vote if your grandfather didn't vote. But if your grandfather was a slave, how the hell would he have voted? 1660, the Connecticut military law barred blacks from military service. Shout out to all the veterans that are in the room. In 1660, you were not allowed to serve in the military, not in Connecticut. 1664, Maryland marriage law, enactment of the first anti-racial marriage statute. 1667, the British Plantation Act established codes of conduct for slaves and slaveholders. That's when they taught slaveholders how to treat slaves. 1705, Massachusetts anti-miscegenation law criminalized interracial marriages. So you marry a white woman, you're going to jail. 1705, New York runaway law prohibited prescribed execution for recaptured runaway slaves. So in 1705 in New York, this is where your allies live now. Let's remember that. Remember your allies. Some of y'all are tempted to think you still have allies out here, right? So your allies passed a law that says that if you get caught and you're a runaway slave, you were going to get the death penalty. 1721, Delaware marriage law forbade marriage between white women and black men. 1722, Pennsylvania morality statement condemned blacks for sexual acts with whites. So you get caught sleeping with a white woman, you're gonna get killed or go to prison. 1722, Pennsylvania anti-miscegenation law criminalized interracial marriages. 1784, Connecticut military law forbade blacks from serving in the militia. 1800, Maryland agricultural laws prohibited blacks from raising and selling agricultural products. So you could not be a farmer. And back then, damn near everybody's a farmer, right? But in 1800, you could not be a farmer if you were black. 1804, Ohio anti-mobility law enacted black laws that restricted blacks' movement. So literally, they had anti-mobility laws, which said you can't even be black and mobile. There's actually a company run by some great guys in Philadelphia who graduated from the Black Business School called Black and Mobile. And they're doing extremely well, but apparently this would have been illegal in 1804 in Ohio. 1804, Ohio registration law required blacks to register and actually post a bond. Okay. So you got to register and then post the bond, like after you register, just because you exist, not because you got locked up, but just because you exist. Okay. 1805, Maryland licensure law forbade blacks from selling tobacco or corn without a license. Not that white people needed a license, but you needed one. 1807, Maryland residence law limited residence of entering free blacks to 2 weeks. So if you were free and you were black and you came to Maryland, you could only stay for 2 weeks, then you had to go home. 1810, Maryland voting law restricted voting rights to whites only. 1811, Delaware migration law forbade migration of blacks, levied $10 per week fine. So if you migrated in Delaware in 1811, you were going to get fined. 1818, Connecticut voting law, disenfranchised black voters. 1821, District of Columbia registration law, required blacks to register annually and post bond. 1827, the Maryland Occupation Acts prohibited blacks from driving or owning hacks, carts, or drays. I assume that that's some type of transportation, I imagine. So if you black, you can't, not only can you not be mobile, but you can't own a vehicle or whatever a hack, a cart, and a dray are. I gotta look that up. 1829, Illinois marriage law forbade black and white marriages. 1831, Indiana mobility law required blacks to register in order to work. 1836, District of Columbia business license law prohibited licensing blacks for profit-making activities. So if you were black, you could not make a profit in the District of Columbia, the nation's capital. 1844, Maryland Occupation Acts excluded blacks from carpentry. So that's another industry. So, okay, so that is 85 laws, and there were probably more, but these were 85 laws, and I read every single one of them. I told you guys I'm going to read every single one of them so that we could drill it into our skulls that this whole system was designed to oppress you. It was designed to make sure that we don't get the same access that everybody else gets. Now, does that mean that you feel sorry for yourself? Does that mean that you give up? No, it does not. No, it does not. I prefer to start off by counting our blessings and also thanking our ancestors. They went they went through a lot so that you can have a lot, so you can have a chance to do a lot. You can't do everything, but you can do a lot, right? But that awareness is extremely important because I don't know about you, but when that next election comes up and the Democrats come dancing through like a broke baby daddy trying to get that vote, I'm literally going to go right back to this book and I'm going to say, well, did you know, since you don't want to talk about reparations, did you know about the law in 1808 that said blacks and whites can't even look out the same windows? Did you know about the 1814 Louisiana migration law that prohibited free blacks from entering the state? Did you know about the Mississippi employment law that forbade blacks from employment in printing and entertainment? Did you know about the laws that said that if you're black and you play a game with a white person, you can go to jail? Did you know they had laws like that? Like, seriously, that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm just telling you, I'm not interested in any sort of political institution or any political solution that comes from an institution that passed laws like this. You're not properly addressing the past, so we can't move forward to the future because the past is all around us. The effects of the past are everywhere. So this is a clear argument for reparations. Dr. Anderson might as well call Black Labor, White Wealth the reparations handbook. Because if you want to understand the case for reparations, all you got to do is read this book. This book is full of information that was never taught to you in school. And I encourage you to make sure your children read it. And if they don't want to read it to them. And also, actually, if you want me to read it to them, every single lecture we've done about 32 lectures or so of this book. If you guys want those lectures, we can't give them away for free because in the Black Business School, we're independent. We got to raise money. But what I did was I took 40% off the price. If you go to drboycebookclub.com, somebody type in the chat, drboycebookclub.com, you can sit there, you can play all the lectures where I literally read the entire book to you and explain it and interpret it and everything, because this is the kind of stuff our people need to read. And also on top of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue. We're going to continue next week. We meet every Wednesday at 8:30. Next week, we're going to start on Powernomics. That's Dr. Anderson's next book. Powernomics is his most famous book. That is the book that contains the power plan for Black America that everybody needs to understand. You got to have a plan. There's a reason why they pass specific laws. He mentioned it in this book. There are reasons they pass laws that said when Black people get together and make a plan, all y'all going to jail. Why do you think it was such a threat? Pay attention now. This is your power as intelligent black people. This is why you're the secret to all this thing. You really think that that ignorant people are going to really carry us where we need to go? No disrespect to me. If you're ignorant, you don't know you're ignorant. I forgive you. I forgive you for you know not what you do. That's totally fine. I'm not judging, but you're really the key. You're the hidden gem. You're the one they don't want out there. You're the baby that they wanted to see aborted, because pay attention now, all these laws were designed, they weren't designed to control ignorant people or backward people or slow people. They were designed to control intelligent people. Anybody making a plan goes to jail. Anybody walking around free goes to jail. Anybody caught reading and writing goes to jail. Anybody caught teaching other slaves goes to jail. That's how you conquer and you control and you oppress a group of people, is you make sure that the smart leaders of the pack get taken out. That's how you get rid of the Toussaint Louvertures, who are going to come back and tell everybody, hey, y'all, I just read about the French Revolution. Let's go kick some white people's asses. They don't want that, because that's what they did in Haiti. And they've been punishing Haiti ever since. Y'all know the whole history of that. So what I want to encourage you to do is I need you to not just be smart. I need you to get smarter. And I don't need you to just get smarter. I need you make sure your kids are smarter than you. And then I don't just want your kids to be smarter than you. I want your kids to be brave and braver than you. So if you raise some smart, brave kids who have courage and also the capacity to make a plan, those are going to be the ones who flip this thing on its head. Those are going to be the ones who elevate the community to the next level. We need to have an army of children like this. Those are your kids. I don't have a whole lot. I don't have enough kids to do it. So I'm going to need y'all's help. Okay? All right. So that's it, guys. I'm exhausted. I don't know about you, but this stuff drains me emotionally. It takes away my voice. Emotionally, I'm just kind of worn out. I'm halfway pissed off. I got to go and hang out with my wife a little bit so she can calm me down. I think there's a reason I married a therapist, because I probably need one. We all do. I think being black in America can make you crazy. Reminders. Number one, if you want to get copies of all the lectures, go to drboycebookclub.com. The 40% discount pops up automatically. Feel free. All those lectures are there. You can keep the party going. If you're still into this right now and you want to keep listening, it's all right there. I encourage you to just listen, speed it up so you can get through with the content faster. We did all this. We read the whole entire book, and we're going to keep going. I'm going to keep adding stuff in there every week. We're going to meet every Wednesday at 8:30. Number two, next week, if you have an interest in NFTs, we're having Tiala Kidd, who's an expert on NFTs. She sold digital real estate for $200,000. She's coming through to do a free event in the Black Business School next week. If you go to boycewatkins.com, you can see the link right there at the top, and you can join us for the NFT event. And then last but not least, on the 22nd, I'm hosting a mini conference on the 7 steps to building your own Black Wall Street. It's based on the presentation and the training I did in Detroit. So I said, you know what, let me take this and do it as a deep dive. We're going to spend about 3 hours in the mini conference. And when you walk out of there, you'll be transformed in terms of understanding how to build your own economy. So if you're interested in that, that's also at boycewatkins.com. So we have a lot of stuff for you. That's all I got to say for tonight. I'm about to bounce on out of here. God bless you. Stay black. I'll see you next week. Love you very much. Take care now. Peace.